Hi guys, so I'm gonna continue and actually finish the last of the annuals from 1994 with the Marvel Comics. So this is gonna be more of X-Men annuals here. I'm gonna start off with Excalibur Annual 2. The first story here is called The Interpretation of Dreams. So it's basically about Captain Britain, now called Britannic, and Psylocke trying to help their comatose brother, Jamie Braddock. So Jamie Braddock, he is basically a villain, a very powerful villain at that, and he has done a lot of wrong things in his life. But his siblings want to save him, of course, him being family, so they basically go into his mind to try to help him out of his coma. There's a bit of bad memories from the childhood, a lot of mental fighting, but eventually they manage to get out, and hopefully they manage to do a difference. Well, make a difference, sorry. Anyway, the second story is an Amanda Sefton story. Amanda Sefton is the step sister of Nightcrawler, I guess you can say. Anyway, this story is called Black Queen Rising, and it's basically about Amanda Sefton, who is now a stewardess on an airplane. She has some very bad illusion-like dreams, and it's basically causing a lot of havoc on the airplane, and these dreams are being sent by Selene, who is the Black Queen of Hellfire Club, not the new Hellfire Club, but the old one. Anyway, Selene is stuck in a stasis field. It's basically ripping her apart and putting her back together again, all over again, for God knows how long she's been there. She was put there by Fitzroy before he died, I believe. Basically, Selene asks for help. Amanda doesn't know who Selene is, so she goes along and basically helps Selene get out of this horrible trap that she's in. However, this stasis field has to be occupied, otherwise it will self-destruct and basically blow up the entire building they're in. And there are very powerful power dampeners all around in this chamber, and Selene has basically just adapted to them. So she is not at full strength, but she is still very strong. However, Amanda Sefton isn't. She feels this very, very well, and luckily Nightcrawler comes along, try to help Amanda, sorry. But they of course realize that someone has to be inside the stasis, otherwise they will die. So Nightcrawler is basically pushed in there by the Black Queen, by Selene, and he is being ripped apart again and being put back together again, and it's very awful, painful. Selene, however, she managed to escape while Amanda tries to save her boyfriend, friend, brother. I mean, their relationship is a little bit tricky. Anyway, she managed to save Nightcrawler, pull him out at the right time, and then pulling their powers together, basically, they managed to escape the house, and the place basically just exploded from the whole self-destruction thing. So the third story in this issue is a Shadowcat story called A Change of Worlds. So this is after Douglock was reintroduced, or however you want to see it. Basically Cypher, aka Ramsey Douglas, or Douglas Ramsey, I think. He basically died previously, and he came back now, basically locked, together with Warlock and himself, so Douglock. Yeah, he's not really the same person anymore, though. And anyway, moving on. Shadowcat's parents have been divorced, and they're basically not talking to each other. Her mother sent her some kind of package with, basically things she thinks she might need, want. Shadowcat opens it and finds these kind of discs, which Cypher has sent to Shadowcat. Basically memories, diaries, pretty much letters, I guess. Anyway, Shadowcat sees these, reads through them all, a lot of stuff really there actually, and eventually she's very sorrowful, of course, about her friend not being her friend anymore, being the person that she knows. So she tries to basically make Douglock see who Douglas Ramsey was, trying to regain the memory, but she fails. It's very sad, and that basically ending that issue. We're gonna move on now with X-Men Volume 2, Annual 3. The first story here is called Heart and Soul. So this is about Storm and Shinobi basically being on a somewhat date. Storm is very up and down in this issue, back and forth with emotions, and Shinobi is basically poisoning her with some sort of different things really, to basically lower her inhibitions, making her more compliant, and this causes Storm to have horrible nightmares about basically her not using her abilities to save her people in Africa. So she has violent reaction to this. The X-Men realizes that something is wrong with her. She acts very differently, and she basically just flies over to Shinobi's penthouse, where she meets the rest of the new Hellfire Club: Benedict Kine, Benazir Kaur, Riva Page. Apparently this whole thing was basically a ploy to make Storm a new part of Hellfire Club. She fights really hard against this, and Shinobi is really happy about this. He basically tries to really force her. The X-Men come along eventually. Big fight. Storm breaks free. She fights. The X-Men came along and basically joined the fights, and eventually they managed to defeat the Hellfire Club, and then they basically just leave. The next story here is a Banshee story called A Moment of Silence. So Banshee, as you might know, is a former Interpol agent. Now he learns that his all-time friend or partner from Interpol, a very close friend of his called Lipton, was basically captive of Hydra. So he goes to save his friend. Basically. See a lot of memories there about the relationship between these two, but mostly basically has to find his friend and help him. So we're going to move on with the last annual. It's called Uncanny X-Men Annual 18. The first story is called Trust is a Two-Edged Sword. So this is about Caliban, who is now a horseman of Apocalypse. Very powerful mutant, very strong, very brutal actually in his anger. And he basically has kidnapped Jubilee to get to Sabretooth. Now Sabretooth was part of the whole mutant massacre thing several years ago, back in the 80s. And he was part of the Marauders, of course. So basically Caliban wants to get revenge for all the deaths of the Morlocks. Shadowcat is called in, basically because Caliban sent some kind of letter, ransom letter, basically about the whole switch thing between Jubilee and Sabretooth. So Shadowcat is called in because she has a previous relationship with Caliban, basically hoping that this will take the edge off already an awful situation. She and a very manacled, very subdued Sabretooth basically ventures into the sewers to save Jubilee, to make a switch, so to speak. I mean, the whole plan is not really to make a switch, but to save Jubilee. But they need to make it look like this because Caliban has powers that he basically can sense other mutants. So he would know, of course, if they had Sabretooth not with them. Anyway, there's a big fight, and Sabretooth really doesn't want to be manacled naturally, so he fights he fights Shadowcat. Shadowcat is really mean against him, which makes sense because he's really nasty guy. She really shows him what she's done for, what she can do, basically. And eventually, though, they get to Jubilee and they get to Caliban. Apparently there's a big ass octopus there who fights them at the same time as Caliban fights them, and a lot of back and forth. Caliban being beaten, Sabretooth breaks out of his manacles and really lashes out at Caliban, then saves Shadowcat and then gets beaten. It's back and forth. The whole thing basically ends with Caliban being really injured by Sabretooth, and the heroes plus Sabretooth get away. The last part here, the last story, is a bishop story. It's called And Nothing Will Ever Be the Same. So this is basically about his time in the XSE, at least during his past, the future, yeah, back and forth, yeah, you know. Anyway, basically about an operation, yeah, which happened to be a danger room session, what you see here. But it's kind of interesting to see him, because he's really good at what he did in the XSE, and you can really see this in this issue. A lot of things go bad and goes wrong, goes bad, but he kind of pulled through. So yeah, I think that would be it. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have enjoyed. Do subscribe if you like it. More will come. And yeah, I hope you will listen to the next one. Alright, bye.